everything has to work together. Production of green hydrogen requires electrolysis. There are companies we are meeting which are making cheaper, faster, better, long-lasting electrolyzers. There are companies that we meet who are talking about storage of hydrogen in various different ways, metal hydride, for example, and so on. And there are companies that we meet which are also converting hydrogen into energy, a fuel cell stack, or a hydrogen combustion engine, or even a hydrogen jet turbine. All of these companies are now coming to life. So this is all happening in India. All the entire chain is happening in India. It is very exciting.
Hi, wherever you're joining me, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another episode of my India Tech Report in Conversation podcast, where I bring you in-depth conversations with founders, VC investors, industry leaders, and other stakeholders building India's deep tech and climate tech ecosystems with the occasional segue into other areas of tech entrepreneurship. I'm Hari Arakli, and in today's episode, I speak with Arpit Agarwal, a partner at Blume Ventures, one of India's best-known early-stage sector-agnostic VC firms with a solid track record of backing what Arpit describes as frontier technologies. In this episode, we discuss the challenges and advantages of building and scaling deep tech science and technology-based companies out of India. Arpit delves into his experience navigating the cycles of venture capital, the gradual shift to larger fund sizes, including at Blume, and the fundamentals that guide investment decisions. He also comments on international dynamics, including the movement of talent and capital in the context of AI being widely seen as the biggest opportunity for founders and investors alike. He weighs in on the shifting balance between hardware and software within India's deep tech scene and identifies some of the most interesting investment themes. As Blume prepares to move into its fifth fund, Arpit is also happy to debate why sector-agnostic funds may be better placed to invest in deep tech. I know you all are very well known in the startup world and in the industry. But as I always say, for a general audience, maybe you can give us a quick overview of your own focus in deep tech, as well as a little bit about what Blume Ventures is also. I think and there's some context in terms of your latest and also your biggest fund.
My name is Arpit. I have been part of the startup ecosystem in India for about 18, 19 years. This journey started with this organization called Head Start Network that a bunch of us co-founded all the way back in 2007. So at that point of time, startup or mentors or investors was something which is unheard of. People did not know what these mean. People who started up tended to be mad people because it didn't make sense to start up at that point of time. There was no specific flavor called deep tech per se, but everyone was trying whatever came naturally to them. This is the time when even Flipkart had not even started, Ola had not started. Of course, these became very large companies after that. And Head Start has this reputation of, all the companies, including Flipkart and Ola and earlier company called, many companies came to Head Start to present and to pitch. Where I really enjoyed myself and dug deeper and realized that this feels me and feels like a purpose to me was when you interact with entrepreneurs, I interacted with entrepreneurs, I figured out that this is what I really wanted to do. I wanted to be around entrepreneurs. And as it so evolves over a period of time, I figured that being able to support startup journeys and being able to be part of many such journeys over a period of time is something that is the most enriching thing to me. So that has, of course, then since last 18, 19 years become the central pillar of where my career has been. The other thing that happened was in IIT Bombay when I was doing my MBA. I was looking at the conversion of technology to the research to the market and broadly what is called as technology transfer or commercialization. And I realized that this is where a lot of value will be created, and India seems to be far behind. This is all the way back in 2009. And I started Academic Ventures, which was a commercial and services company. It was too ahead of its time, did not work out, eventually shut it down. But the love for technology and that technology will create new things and new business models stayed with me. So I was already into entrepreneurship, and I also got into deep tech. And so then I became a deep tech entrepreneur enabler. That's what I have been all these years, and I absolutely enjoy what I do. What also happened in Bloom when I joined in 2014 was that Bloom was a firm which was willing to take bets on things which were otherwise not really seen or done. I remember when I saw Bloom portfolio first time, even before I joined, I realized that there was something that Bloom has done that most other people would not. And when I joined, I realized the reason why we are able to do this is because Bloom doesn't wait for signals to emerge from the market. And we are able to actually just get in and figure our way out as long as it is making sense to us. In this sense, we are entrepreneurial. We also take bets which are ahead of the curve. Some of our companies like Carbon Clean and Grey Orange took a long time, or more recently, Ethereal Machines and Ati Motors or Euler Motors took a longer time to become larger and mature companies. But the journey has been so enriching, and we have built a bunch of name for ourselves to be able to support these companies over a long period of time. We are now into our Fund 5, which is approximately 250 to $300 million range, and which will be a large enough fund where we'll support a lot of pre-Series A and Series A deep tech companies. So that's where we are. It's been a long journey. It's been about 14, 15 years with Bloom. And we hope to be able to continue making a difference in broadly what we call as now frontier tech, which includes both deep tech and climate.
As a sort of reporter who's been looking at this, I feel like there's a lot of overlap in the sense
In
that
deep tech and climate tech.
yeah,
Yes, there is
that a
overlap.
lot of really good solutions will ultimately come out of deep scientific knowledge
Absolutely.
being translated to products and
These are
solutions.
not distinct areas. These
Yeah,
are
yeah,
overlapping
yeah.
areas. The gap between deep tech is about innovation at the core, where a scientific innovation or STEM innovation starts a company or an idea and then you take it to the market. Climate tech could include some deep tech, but may not be just deep tech. For example, if someone is doing a carbon trading platform, that can also be considered as climate tech, while it is not deep tech. So climate tech will be slightly broader in this sense. Deep tech would be like a horizontal, climate tech would be a vertical, a large vertical, and will have strong overlaps.
In the first four funds, can you talk a little bit about how investments into the overall deep tech umbrella kind of evolved from the early cohort to the new ones that you have invested in or that you're meeting, in terms of the ideas that the founders are bringing, their experience, as well as earlier on, perhaps much of it was software driven. Now there is a lot of hardware.
Um, I believe, and I'm very happy for friends in the ecosystem to come and debate this out with me. I believe that if we were a deep tech only fund, presuming that we have access to all the companies. See, when you are a sector specific fund, you become deeper into one area and you have probably access to more number of companies in that area, and hence arguably a selection could be better. However, I am arguing that if I have enough access, then a sector agnostic fund will deliver better returns in every sector as compared to a sector focused fund, because I am actually being asked tougher questions. My IC has tighter filters for a deep tech company to go through as compared to uh, a sector agnostic fund who would otherwise be willing to do things which are somewhat on the edge of acceptability. For example, let us say deep tech. Ethereal Machines and Ati Motors are part of our Fund 3. These are all 2018-19 era. They would have passed through the IC's muster as compared to what was hot sector at that point of time, probably SaaS or probably EdTech. And the best of the companies in every other sector was compared with these companies. And still these companies came out on top. So I'm arguing that our selection becomes that much tighter and sharper. And hence our IRRs will probably be better. As long as, of course, we have access to the right companies. If we don't have access to the right company, then there's a problem. So it's counterintuitive, but that has been our experience as well. What has happened is, Hari, that over these 14 years of history, we might have ended up investing about 20, 25 deep tech specific companies, deep tech, climate tech companies. The gross IRR of these has been far better than the fund's IRR. So there is data to back me. The point I'm making is that the number of investments are very few. Out of maybe 150 plus investments that we have made, only about 25 were deep tech. So the number of investments were not too many across 14, 15 years, but the ones which actually went through are actually much better companies than most others.
Do you see that changing now? I mean, because one, there is a lot of awareness, obviously. Two, now the government is also very keen to back deep tech startups, and they have set up fairly large funds, tens of thousands of crores of rupees across multiple.
Yes.
So, do you expect that a VC firm like Blume, which already has experience in investing in deep tech, the proportion of deep tech companies, would you expect it to go up?
We already have roughly about 40% scope of doing deep tech in Bloom. So I think we are enough. If we probably will not do more than 40% investments in broader deep tech, climate tech, including AI. All of this is a large bucket, and I think we are okay with this. Where governments have done well, and Indian government particularly has done well, is to make noise about it, put money where the challenge is, bring up new funds. It is more like ecosystem creation. Specific firms and their actions will be determined partly by this, but mostly by market considerations.
Can you talk about which areas you're finding really interesting as of today?
See, with the India-Pak conflict, over the last 3-4 months especially, the interest in defense company has gone through the roof. There are a lot of emergency procedures by which government is buying a lot of drones, for example. And we incidentally do not have enough cutting edge drone tech in India as of today. So whatever we have is being bought. They probably are importing as much as they can as well, because the warfare has completely shifted towards drone, towards electronics, and also towards space. All three areas we haven't really invested enough as a country. Maybe over 5 years we'll catch up. But today it is a very important area of investments, and hence an area of investment for us. So we think defense tech is a very large and interesting area. There is a very important aspect of energy called hydrogen, and broadly green hydrogen. That area is becoming mature. A lot of startups activity has started to happen in this area, and probably that is another area where we will see more investments coming in over the next 3 years. The other area which, it's very interesting that all of these trends are already identified by Government of India. There is a quantum computing mission, for example, which is saying we will do more quantum computing, and hoping that with quantum computing we will become best in the world. We probably have lost out on electric vehicles, on AI, but in quantum computing will be at the best, and $1 billion have been earmarked for that. So we definitely think quantum computing is a very interesting area. We recently published a report around quantum computing, our view on quantum computing. It's a very complex and very deep tech area that is very interesting. Overall, electric vehicles ecosystem could see investments in broadly, you can say, software and marketplaces, because the verticals are somewhat taken. I would think that a lot of money will go into drone technology, not just defense drone technology, because now the technology seems to be mature enough that it can make commercial sense. And when it makes commercial sense, a lot of people in the commercial world will come and lap this up. A lot of activity is already happening, for example, in agricultural drone, in defense drone, and logistics drone also. But now they're coming of age and making economics work. So these are the 4 or 5 areas which I think are very interesting for the next 3 years of our firm.
I want to ask you individually about some of these. Outside of India, sort of globally, what are some of the other areas that you see which are really interesting? For example, to my mind, humanoid robots seems to be an area where a lot of advances are happening. Even applications of humanoid robots in factories and warehouses probably taking off much earlier than the consumer side of things.
Yes.
And Google's recent commitment to buy nuclear fusion power from Commonwealth and also fusion.
Okay.
That also caught my attention.
That's right.
So just want to hear your views on, at the global level, what are some of the interesting areas that you're seeing?
So let's talk about fusion and fission, broadly nuclear energy. It's very interesting that for the longest time, especially after Second World War and Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the world had decided that this is a bad kind of technology. And of course, there were disasters like Chernobyl, which are imprinted on people's mind even after 50 years. So that has been around, because nuclear energy has a risk, and the risk is real, and it sometimes cannot be contained. So there is that challenge, due to which a lot more investments were happening in what is a stable power source called coal or gas. And thermal power continues to be the mainstay for most energy needs in India, in the world, not just in India. Renewable power like solar, etc., are coming up and they're becoming large enough, but they also have their challenge. For example, they're intermittent. They will require batteries and so on, or they'll require syncing with the grid, which is an issue. And hence, nuclear comes to be very interesting because it is clean, mostly. I mean, there is no, as long as you contain the emission, it is very clean. The radioactive emission is very clean. It is also reliable. You can keep it on 24/7, and you can make very large plants out of it. You can make a gigawatt plant and it can still work. So it is a fantastic place. Nuclear is found, especially the fission has found an interesting place. In terms of fusion, it is still a bit away. I think it's about 5, maybe even 10 years away for us to get a large-scale fusion plant, which can really power Google's ambition. They may have given a forward commitment, which makes sense, but it will be a challenge to see that coming to reality in at least 5 years. But yes, the moment fusion starts to work, then I think the world will be actually a very different place, because there is no seeming downside to fusion as we can imagine. That will be a fantastic place to be. I'm just waiting for that time to happen, maybe in my lifetime. On the piece of, the first question was about the robotics. I tell this to a lot of people, two different things. New technology, especially if you are making something which has not been tried before, should better be adapted by businesses before it goes to consumers. Because consumers expect a lot more from their technology and their products as compared to businesses. In a business scenario, in a factory or warehouse, it may be harder to sell, but you can box it into a contract saying, I will do this and I will not do this. And the boundaries are clearly defined. While in consumer, the boundaries are almost never defined. You will expect your things you extend really longer. And hence the expectation on consumer technology is much harsher. And the cost expectation is much harsher. As a consequence, technology will first be adopted which is why bots are being adopted in warehouse and factories first, and then we'll go there. This is one piece. The second piece on humanoid robots, I believe that most tasks can be done with use case specific bots. Like, for example, it's very similar to saying a spanner or a screwdriver versus a Swiss Army knife. You would expect the humanoid bot to do the Swiss Army knife job, but mostly it can very well be done by the spanner or screwdriver, which is a use case specific bot. Like, for example, Atimoto is making autonomous mobile robot, which is pulling trolleys on a factory floor. It's very interesting that use case alone $10 billion worth. Why shouldn't companies be started in that? Of course, it is sexy to think of a robot flipping over and all that, but I'm told that 8 out of 10 times, it may not flip over very well. It is careful and very carefully crafted film that excites people, but sometimes it doesn't work. Most times, it is not very accurate. So it is a hard technology problem. I'm not saying over a period of next 4 or 5 years, we'll not be able to solve them, but humanoid bots are not going to become mainstream for a few years. They will start happening to some use cases, even the ones like, for example, Agility, which is a large company in the US making humanoid bots. Their use case seems to be more POC-like, just tentative, and many cases robots topple over, they require tethering and so on. It is still a bit early, but yeah, over the 3 years, maybe things will change.
Fair enough. Okay, so let me come back more to
But yeah, the important point is, if I were to start a business and if I were to catch the wave, I will probably start a biped robot business, because that will definitely catch the wave and technology will mature alongside. And the advantage of India is that you can make very, very good engineering at very good prices that can really win the world, sometimes better than China even.
Okay, so let's talk about that also down the line. Advantage of India in deep tech,
Yes.
which is probably counterintuitive.
Yes.
Um, so, so briefly at least, I want to capture a little bit more of your views on hydrogen. What kind of applications do you envisage, especially in the Indian market context?
Indian market and globally, hydrogen has been used, a very large amount of hydrogen is being used as an industrial input. For example, in a refinery on a blast furnace, hydrogen is already being used, but the refinery and blast furnaces make their own hydrogen and use it on site. They're never really stored anywhere or transported anywhere, mostly not used, done that. However, hydrogen is very interesting example, very interesting. If you can produce hydrogen with green sources, green hydrogen, you can transport it with in pipelines, or you can transport in a box, and you can burn it at a source, for example, burn it in a genset, or you can use fuel cell to generate energy out of that. This entire chain is clean. It does not have any fossil fuel footprint. So green hydrogen is a fantastic alternate energy source which is completely clean, and that potential, and slowly the prices of it will come down to make economic sense. Once that starts to happen, you will see explosion, which means everything has to work together. Production of green hydrogen requires electrolysis. There are companies we are meeting which are making cheaper, faster, better, long-lasting electrolyzers. There are companies that we meet who are talking about storage of hydrogen in various different ways, metal hydride, for example, and so on. And there are companies that we meet which are also converting hydrogen into energy, a fuel cell stack, or a hydrogen combustion engine, or even a hydrogen jet fuel, jet turbine. All of these companies are now coming to life. So this is all happening in India. All the entire chain is happening in India, which is very exciting.
Okay, now will you talk a bit more about why you say there are some advantages to doing deep tech out of India? Because I mean, just as some context, on the AI side, already anecdotally, there are lots of stories on LinkedIn, etc., where people are talking about moving to San Francisco and not missing the bus, especially on the VC side. And you know, again, anecdotally, in talking to deep tech entrepreneurs, there are areas where we still have to depend on the advanced economies. For example, some sophisticated testing not available in India. In biotech, the manufacturing practices require some very high-end clean environments, etc. Such things are not easy in India. So, on the one hand, we see all these kinds of things, but you also see some reasons for advantages in India. Walk us through that.
So, let us agree, this is on the table, that China, in terms of cost of manufacturing, will be superior for most things because of the sheer capability that they've built and the size of economy and the size of things that they do. So, in general, they'll be better. However, if you were to talk about specific use cases, you could think that, let us say, if I take a specific example of Ati Motors. Ati Motors bot is arguably cheaper to make in India as compared to make in China or whatever is available off the shelf in China. Why? Because Ati Motors was making a bot which was engineered for price performance. A lot of times you would think that the bots have to, typically the robotic ecosystem is engineered for very sharp and very precise values. And the sensors that they use are therefore expensive. While the automotive supply chain has a lot more volume, much cheaper, maybe slightly less accurate. But if you can make do with that for your application, maybe you will be able to get a much cheaper bot in your hand. Secondly, the advantage India has is that it is India and not China. Therefore, American companies or European companies feel a lot more comfortable doing business with Indian companies. That is another reason why adoption happens. And the cost structures, even if they're at par, will work in your favor because you are an Indian company and you don't have any Chinese footprint, for example, will be very useful. The third thing that happens is that we have a natural advantage in terms of software. So almost everything that we talk in hardware has a strong software integration aspect. And the software integration may be better fit for an Indian company to do than a Chinese company. The other piece about this is that when you integrate into large enterprise IT systems, it is the Indian companies already have a capability to do this much better than Chinese companies. Language helps, ability to sell helps, ability to integrate helps, and your bot is anyway cheaper. By the way, just because you make cheaper bots is not the reason why you sell cheaper. You may still sell at the same price that American company is selling, but you will end up collecting a lot more margin.
Can you talk about the related aspect of how do they scale? How does an Ati go from selling hundreds of robots to selling thousands of robots? Or how does an ethereal go from doing, I don't know, possibly hundreds of parts today in their CNC machines to how do they do tens of thousands of parts?
Yes. Scaling up is a journey in itself. I don't think there is any other way of scaling up than just by doing the same things again and again much better. You could say that, okay, can I bring in various different distribution? Yes, you can bring distribution. Can you strike various partnerships? Yes, of course you can do that. Can you hire very smart salespeople and you can hire more of them? Yes, in the geography that is your target, US for example. Ati Motors would have to do the same thing. Scaling up journey will be very similar as compared to a software company as well, because you are doing the same processes again and again. The pre-PMF journey will be very different for a software hardware company. Post-PMF journey will probably be the same as compared to a software company. For example, a company like Freshworks would have grown up in the US ecosystem, America as a market, over maybe 8 years. And they would have to learn the same things that Ati Motors will have to now learn. Yes, it is a hardware proposition, therefore some logistics are different, but the process of selling, the process of making a use case, the process of testing, supporting and integrating will probably remain the same. We have a company called Grey Orange, which is largely almost entire revenue now comes from North America, and they are more software company than hardware company now, because enterprise IT requires so many different pieces to be fit together that hardware remains only a small line item for now. And that is the direction most companies will inevitably have to take, even in hardware.
Yeah, they're a very interesting case. No, when they started out and for several years initially,
Yes.
we were very excited as sort of a standout example of robotics coming out of India.
Absolutely.
But as you said, now they've become a very sophisticated software company.
Yes.
I mean, in some ways, is that a reflection of the limitations of an Indian deep tech company, or is that not the correct way of looking at it?
No, it is not. I don't think a robotic company making more software company is a reflection of weakness. It's actually a reflection of strength. You know that this is something you can do much better, and this is something that is being valued highly by the customer. And hence, in this sense, it is a lot more margins. So if I can do a lot more software integration and collect more margins, I'm orienting my business towards more margin, hence becoming more successful. Margin expansion is a sign of strength, as compared to continuing to be beaten down by the hardware bomb and hardware cost, and in which you can't compete with Chinese in some segments. It becomes very hard. So I think it is a position of strength. Also, one learning is that when you become a larger robotic company, your ability to integrate in a very large environment, which enterprise IT, is very, very crucial. I don't think there is a way around it. So it is both a necessity and a strength.
What are some white spaces or gaps in India? For example, in drug discovery, I mean, new molecules and things like that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right. I think a lot about this, and I realize that the key difference between America and India and the ecosystems there and ours is that America has chosen to actually be the innovation engine for the entire world healthcare broadly and pharma in particular. Both medtech and pharma, but pharma in particular, most of the new drugs are being discovered in US. The reason why it's being discovered is because they are willing to spend a lot more money on therapies. So it is the entire ecosystem which is powering this. I was actually at one point reading a story where they said per capita spend on healthcare is among the highest in the US, at the same among the OECD countries, and the life expectancy is in the middle of the pack. So they are not saying that I want to optimize on spend versus expectancy. They are saying that I want to continue being on the leading edge, and a lot more money will be powered into the business, and hence we will become they continue to be innovation powerhouse, and hence you will see almost everything. Big pharma is successful because a lot of therapies have a lot of money that is available to them. Sometimes the therapies cost $100,000 a year, especially in cancer. Hence, there is mid pharma, then there is small pharma, there is med tech. There are a lot of agencies which work together, which help you out license, in license. A lot of deal making is happening, M&A is happening. It's a much more vibrant biotech ecosystem, pharma ecosystem in the US. India is not even a shadow at this point of time. One, our problems are very different. Our problem is also to make sure that people are living a longer life, which means access is a problem in India. Mostly in India, we are solving for making sure that people don't die for lack of access, for example, for tuberculosis, for example, for any other communicable disease. Forget talking about cancer. Cancer is still tier 1, tier 2 phenomena even today. In India, therapies are not available in tier 3, and that is not even the focus. So we have different problems, we are solving them differently, and hence branded generics, and generics is where we have shined very well. And the smart entrepreneurs have also integrated backwards into manufacturing, and they have become very large global companies in this sense. Dr. Reddy's and Sun Pharma exports so much of pharma to the US and Europe also in a generic sense. That works perfectly well. However, there is obviously a challenge in this. One, because not enough money is being spent, or it is not available, it is not being represented by insurance companies or payers in a system that a lot more money can be funneled into innovation. As a consequence, Indian drug discovery companies or medtech companies continue to struggle. Almost there is no other way for them to be successful but by benchmarking and integrating with the Boston ecosystem. Almost all the companies in India who have seen some degree of success in biotech and medtech have had a strong Boston leg. There is no other way of doing this, unfortunately, at this point of time. I do not expect Indian pharma companies to buy drug molecules because they don't have capability or intent to invest into the long cycles of clinical trials. Phase 2, phase 3s are very expensive. I also don't expect them to work with, even incubate some of these on their own, because again, their business models are very different. Maybe over the next 20 years, new companies will emerge out of India, which will become like large pharma companies. And at that point of time, these pharma companies will end up changing themselves, and the priority for the nation will also change. But until that happens, our biotech and medtech industry is going to be suffering from lack of money in the system, really. Lack of money, which is allowing them to innovate in this system, honestly. Very hard. It's a hard truth. The one thing that is actually done very well in India, in the government of India has this organization called BIRAC, which is doing fantastic job over the last maybe 18, 19, if not 20 years. And they have uncovered and supported so many good entrepreneurs. Very smart people are working on it. I don't know if if many of them will be able to get to the same place as they would have gotten to if they were in the US. With the same kind of capability, they're very smart people. I don't think they will be able to get there today. Maybe 5 years later, things will change, I'm hoping. But as of today, we are continuing to struggle.
Okay, that's an interesting aspect. And as you say, companies like Zumutar and Bugworks do have international connections.
Absolutely. So everyone who feels to have any success ends up having a strong US angle. Because the buyers are there, the best of technology is there, the best of licensing partners are there. And you may have some activity happening from India, but that's largely engineered outside of India.
I want to switch gears and ask you about the VC ecosystem and what's happening in the Indian VC ecosystem that can support the deep tech entrepreneurs. Today, because of the new AI gold rush, and as we were talking about it earlier, there are anecdotally people talking about moving to Silicon Valley so as to not miss the best opportunities.
Yeah.
Will that hurt the Indian deep tech entrepreneurs? And in general, will that hurt the Indian startup ecosystem by sucking some money out of it?
So, two different things. One is the capital allocation problem, which is saying VCs, do they invest into AI and not deep tech, versus why should they invest into deep tech? That's one problem. Most people who are sector agnostic have a sense that they should split their money in a wise manner, and deep tech is emerging to be an area of interest for every single VC firm in India. So I don't expect that to happen too much. AI is not going to take the money away from deep tech. AI will take probably money away from fintech, from edtech, from other pieces of SaaS and so on, but not really from deep tech. Deep tech continues to be a theme across our ecosystem, and everyone is talking about it at this point. That wouldn't probably happen. And when someone is moving from India to abroad, or US particularly, and especially San Francisco, to learn more about AI, that makes sense. It is well understood that the level of technology being developed and the conversations happening and in that geography is significantly superior to ours. So I don't think that we should dispute this fact. We should worry about it, or people will be attracted to wherever opportunities are.
Yeah.
However, what I definitely see is that once these people have figured out their future, they will be able to convert this back into India, and we will have significantly better business models going forward.
It feels like in many areas, there are really promising companies in India which are on the cusp of making that next jump in terms of their growth.
Yeah.
Whether it is Agnikul or
That's right.
Eternal making their electrolyzers.
That's right.
And we're bumping into new entrepreneurs every day.
Absolutely.
So I was just wondering whether the whole sort of AI phenomenon is so big that...
I mean, while we are absolutely being bitten by the AI wave, all the VCs in India today, we are also being very cautious about what is our natural advantage here. If you are making an enterprise software company, enterprise AI company, you know that the competition will be very, very intense in every single segment. So if you were to make bets, you will be a lot more tentative about it. Because the moment, anyway, when things start to work, they become so hot that you're outpriced. So you are basically, everyone is cautious enough to say that we will not put all eggs in this basket. It is a very important basket. We have to continue growing this basket, but let us not bet our house yet on the AI wave. So I don't expect that to happen really. And as I said, the reason why AI wave is very strong and also deep tech has a wave in itself is because other sectors have not delivered. Like broadly, all kind of commerce plays seem like a zero-sum game, where the money is not to be, a lot of money is very hard to make. Similarly, brands are an interesting area, but it's very hard to make a brand by itself. Fintech is strongly regulatory limited, right? So people are saying whatever happened, innovation happened in fintech, you still have to look at the regulators and see whether this will make sense. On edtech, broadly, people are now coming to a conclusion that is the offline world where the money is going to be made, and online, the COVID era, online first education is kind of gone already. So there's a lot of recalibration, and money is being freed up on all these sectors to invest into AI and deep tech. This is how I look at it.
Okay, fair enough. So to wrap up, I'll bring you back to your long-standing passion for translational research, taking lab work and getting it to and seeing it into commercialization and enabling that process. So allow me to make a brief comment. I mean,
Sure.
Recently on India Tech Report is talking to Karthi at MFB Partners in the context of their Harper Court Fund, which is as you know, dedicated tie-up with Chicago University.
Yeah.
Do you think those kind of innovative partnerships are beginning to happen in India with VC firms and higher schools of learning? And what's been the Blume experience in that area so far?
This is bound to happen to India as well. If I was a new deep tech fund in India, and if I had any ability to influence and engage with IIT Madras, I will just go and say, I'm your fund. Because 30% IIT Madras's own data says 30% of all deep tech companies come from IIT Madras. So if I have access to 30% companies ahead of the curve, then I will make good investments, arguably. And some startup star companies that come out of that, Aether Energy, Unifor, etc., are a good example. So it's bound to happen. There are already an emergence of a new kind of firms, VC firms, which are focused on student entrepreneurship. So there are two firms I am aware of, Grad Capital and Campus Fund, which are focused only on that. And they are doing very, very good, incidentally, deep tech investments. Because an engineer will be obviously most motivated to solve an engineering problem. So when you go to an engineering campus, you'll find fantastic, and also obviously youth and especially students do not think no for an answer. So they keep thinking and exploring new things, and which is why they are able to create something fantastic. In our experience, Pixel, Grey Orange, Carbon Clean, Ethereal, all the founders have never worked outside. Right? They just almost fresh out of college when they started. So that's bound to happen.
Can you broadly talk about what might be your priorities in terms of upcoming investments? How will they be different? How are they sort of evolving compared with earlier cohorts?
Hari, we have to put this into historical context, Blume's journey. For the first two funds, first fund was in today's value $18 million. The second fund today's value was $50 million roughly. We are relatively small funds. We are not different from a micro VC fund being established today. And our strategy was very similar. Very small checks, opportunistic checks, and we had a mix of strategies sometimes to do whatever comes whatever comes to us, and we were sort of experimenting and figuring our life out. Starting fund 3, we really pivoted into saying we will take lead positions, we will take significant stakes, and we will do a lot more concentrated investments. So fund 3 was $100 million and fund 4 was about $280 million, and fund 5 will be similar size. And now we are sort of consolidating, saying lesser number of investments, bigger check sizes per investment, and lot more money for reserves. So I think fund 5 will be more of a repeat and an extension of fund 4. I don't think we're looking to change anything. From a firm perspective, one of the important focuses has been over the last 3 years, and will continue to be a strong focus, is to generate exits. And over the next 3 years, we are hoping 8 to 10 of our companies will hit IPO. Some of them are already started, some of them will happen in due course. And that is something which is the most important thing for us at this point of time. Making investment strategy continues to be roughly the same. I think we have gotten there and somewhat mature in that space. But generating exits is a very important part of our business.
In your deep tech portfolio, that's probably a bit longer down the line, right?
It will, yes. I think deep tech companies exiting may be a little longer. We did manage to exit Carbon Clean. We are trying to exit Grey Orange. These are all Fund 1 companies. But other deep tech companies may be a little longer.